You're watching TAG TV.
Good evening. Welcome to South Asia Newsline. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Here are the top stories we're tracking for you on Tuesday, the 5th of February. Pakistan violates ceasefire in India's Jammu and Kashmir targets army camp. Scholars and activists discuss impacts of China-Pakistan economic corridor in France. And Taliban's stance is the main obstacle in way of peace, says Afghan CEO Abdullah. And now for all the details. Pakistan on Tuesday violated ceasefire along the frontier in Poonch district of India's northern Jammu and Kashmir province. The Pakistani troops targeted an army camp near civilian areas, but no loss of life or property was reported in the incident.
Pakistani troops on Tuesday violated ceasefire in Poonch district of India's northern Jammu and Kashmir province by firing 2 rounds of rocket launchers towards an army camp along the de facto border. A police official said the rockets were aimed at the army camp in Julas area of the Krishna Ghati sector, but they did not cause any damage. Since the beginning of the year 2019, Pakistani troops have been regularly violating the ceasefire, especially along the frontier. As many as 2,936 instances of ceasefire violations by Pakistan were recorded in Jammu and Kashmir in 2018, which were the highest in the last 15 years.
सिविलियन को निशाना बना रहे हैं तो ये बार-बार एक नीचे पड़ा है तो इससे कोई जानी माली नुकसान नहीं हुआ है लेकिन अलबत्ता है ये तकरीबन अभी को तकरीबन 12:10 के करीब ये हादसा हुआ.
The troops of arch rivals India and Pakistan intermittently exchanged fire on the line of control despite an agreement in 2003 that a ceasefire should be observed along the working boundary. Both New Delhi and Islamabad blame each other for resorting to unprovoked firings.
At least 330 people have been tested positive for swine flu in India's southern Telangana province so far this year. The surge in the cases of the virus have sent alarm bells ringing, and special measures have been taken by the authorities to contain the outbreak.
At least 330 persons have been tested positive for swine flu in India's southern Telangana province so far this year. Authorities said blood samples of 1,656 patients were tested for swine flu virus in the month of January, out of which 307 turned out to be positive. Whereas 23 cases have been confirmed positive out of 246 samples tested so far in the month of February. The surge in the cases of infection seasonal influenza have sent alarm bells ringing in the province, and special measures are being taken by the authorities to contain the outbreak.
Compared to last time, around 1,656 samples we were done in IPM. In that, 307 was positive in January, and February around 246 cases tested done. In that, we have 23 positive. So that means there is a little rise in the swine flu cases.
Swine flu is caused by H1N1 virus. Its symptoms are similar to those produced by other influenza viruses, including high fever, cough, sore throat, body ache, and respiratory problems. As per the health experts, children, elderly people, pregnant women, and those suffering from respiratory problems are highly susceptible to the virus.
In news from Pakistan, an anti-terrorism court on Monday extended the judicial remand of Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan Party chief Khadim Hussain Rizvi and 4 others until February 8th. Rizvi was taken into protective custody in November last year after his ultra-religious political party announced massive protest against a Supreme Court's verdict to acquit a Christian woman accused of blasphemy.
An anti-terrorism court or ATC on Monday extended the judicial remand of Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan Party or TLP chief Khadim Hussain Rizvi and 4 others until February 8th. Rizvi and other TLP leaders including Peer Afzal Qadri, Hafiz Farooq al-Hassan and Peer Ejaz Ashrafi were produced before the court after their physical remand, earlier granted for 14 days, had expired. On November 23, 2018, Rizvi was taken into protective custody by police from Lahore as the law enforcers launched a massive crackdown on the TLP leaders and activists. The police claimed that the activities of Khadim Hussain Rizvi were prejudicial to the public safety and maintenance of public order. The crackdown was launched 2 days before the TLP announced to resume its protest against the Supreme Court's verdict acquitting Asia Bibi, a Christian woman accused of blasphemy. The workers of the TLP and other religious parties had took to the streets and blocked major roads and intersections through sit-ins against the apex court's verdict in different parts of the country.
Moving on, scholars, activists and journalists from across the world gathered for a seminar in Paris to discuss the impacts of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor project. Activists have long blamed that the infrastructure project has only brought death and destruction instead of economic opportunities for the people of illegally occupied territories of Balochistan and Gilgit-Baltistan.
Scholars, former diplomats, human rights activists and journalists from across the globe gathered in Paris to discuss the implications of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor Project or CPEC. While discussing the CPEC's legal, geostrategic, economic and environmental impacts, the participants during a seminar argued that acquiring control of trade inevitably translates into governmental influence. Activists have long blamed China and Pakistan are together aiming to change the demography of Balochistan and have been committing atrocities against innocent Baloch people.
CPEC is just another way to exploit Baloch people. Is a matter. First of all, is an economic matter. Is a matter of land compensation. Is a matter of depriving local people of jobs, of depriving of natural resources.
People, they are resisting that our land has been occupied, and if a land is under occupation, then the state which has occupied it does not have any right to design mega projects or strategic designs on that land.
Activists have long blamed that CPEC is illegal and that the indigenous people of Balochistan and Gilgit-Baltistan, from where it passes, have been stripped away of their natural resources. They claim the CPEC project has only brought death and destruction for the local people instead of economic opportunities. They accuse those who have opposed CPEC have been subject to violent crackdowns and torture under the pretext of anti-terrorism laws.
In news from Afghanistan, Afghanistan's Chief Executive Abdullah on Monday said Taliban's stance of refusing to hold direct talks with the Afghan government is the main obstacle in the way of achieving peace in the country. He made the remarks while addressing reporters in Kabul a day before peace talks were to start between Taliban and some Afghan politicians.
Afghanistan's chief executive Abdullah said on Monday that he sees Taliban's stance of consistently refusing to hold face-to-face talks with the Afghan government as the main obstacle in the way of achieving peace. The chief executive made the comments while addressing reporters in Kabul, a day before the Moscow peace talks were to start between some Afghan politicians and the Taliban. He further said, "There are two fronts at this juncture. The peace front, which he said are the people, government and the political parties who want peace, and the other is the war front, the groups like Taliban, Al-Qaeda, Daesh and others."
اگر ما بنابر هر دلیل، بنابر شکایت‌هایی که داریم، بنابر کمبودی‌هایی که وجود دارد، بنابر اعتراضات و انتقاداتی که داریم، محوریت دولت نادیده بگیریم، این فقط کمک به این خواهد کرد که طالبایی که بدون ازو لجوج هستند و با لجاجت برخورد کردن در برابر سرنوشت مردم افغانستان بیشتر لجوج میشه، بیشتر لجوجانه برخورد.
Abdullah also reacted to US President Donald Trump's announcement of withdrawing a significant number of his forces from Afghanistan. He said the world would not end if the US withdraws part of its troops from Afghanistan. However, in his recent remarks, Trump on the decision said he will keep intelligence forces in the country.
More news from Afghanistan. A parliamentary election candidate from Afghanistan's Badakhshan province has levelled corruption allegations against the deputy chairpersons of the Independent Election Commission and the Independent Electoral Complaints Commission. He claimed that the two officials asked bribe from him in exchange for a seat in the parliament.
Islam Yaftali, a parliamentary election candidate from Afghanistan's Badakhshan province, on Monday levelled corruption allegations against the deputy chairman of the Independent Election Commission or IEC and the Independent Electoral Complaints Commission or IECC. Yaftali showed messages he claims were sent to him by the two officials asking for bribes in exchange for a seat in parliament. He claimed that following the announcement of the preliminary results and the completion of the recount process, the officials sent him congratulatory messages in which they declared him a winner. But later, both IEC and the IECC commissioners asked him for money.
مکمل نتیجه نهایی را ملغا قرار دادن به جاش نتیجه ابتدایی اعلام کردن. ولی ما کمیسیون شکایات کمیسیون انتخابات اردوش ظلم کرده.
Meanwhile, the election commissioners have accused Yaftali of being involved in fraud along with the head of the IECC in Badakhshan and said that is why his name was dropped from the winners list. Yaftali has now called on the Afghan legal and judicial institutions to probe the corruption charges against the election commissioners.
Moving on to news from Nepal. Nepal's opposition party, the Nepali Congress, on Monday staged a nationwide anti-government protest. The political party took to the streets across the Himalayan nation, claiming the government's activities are going against the interest of the common public.
Hundreds of Nepal's opposition party members and supporters took part in a protest rally against the government on Monday, which went through a number of districts in the country. Nepal's opposition party, the Nepali Congress or NC, came to the streets claiming the government activities are going against the interests of the public. The party claimed anti-government protests were organized in all the 77 districts of the country. The Central Committee meeting of the opposition party of Nepal last month had decided to organize the demonstrations against the government. The Nepali Congress had earlier also shown its solidarity over the demands of social activist Dr. Govinda Kesi when it staged a protest in the parliament. The party also protested against government's step of endorsing the National Medical Education Bill, which was endorsed despite the protest and the objection.
Well, that's the way towards in South Asia this evening. Before we conclude, the top stories once again. Pakistan violates a ceasefire in India's Jammu and Kashmir targets army camp. Scholars and activists discuss impacts of China-Pakistan economic corridor in France. And Taliban stance is main obstacle in way of peace, says Afghan CEO Abdullah. Now our viewers can watch the show on SouthAsiaNewsline.com. You can also visit us on Facebook.com/SAsiaNewsline and follow us on Twitter @SAsiaNewsline. That's all in tonight's edition. We'll see you same time tomorrow. Good night.